Police in East Sussex are growing increasingly concerned for the safety of two 10-year-old girls missing since yesterday morning. Lisa Hoodless and Charlene Lunnan were last seen setting off together on the short walk to their school at St Leonard's.
In Hastings in the winter of 1999, every parent's greatest fear came true. Two little girls went missing as they walked to school.
Nobody heard a girl scream. Nobody saw one jot of anything. They literally disappeared off the face of the earth. So I think that's what made it so very difficult. There was absolutely nothing to go on, really.
Gurkhas have joined the search for the two 10-year-old girls missing in East Sussex.
Over 4 days, the country watched as a huge police hunt became increasingly desperate.
The authorities say they're still baffled as to the 10-year-old's whereabouts. A dual disappearance of this duration is almost unheard of in police files.
We had no witnesses to say that they'd been kidnapped or anything like that. So there was always that strong possibility that they could have gone on some adventure and jumped on a train or something like that.
What happened to Charlene and Lisa was remarkable. They'd been abducted, but were found alive.
The abduction of children is very rare. But for two girls to be abducted and to be found and returned home is even rarer.
They don't come back. Kids don't come back when they've been abducted. It's as simple as that, so I was amazed.
Now Charlene and Lisa give their first-hand accounts of what it means to be kidnapped, given up for dead, but come back and survive.
I love Hastings. It's a great place to bring kids up. You got the sea. You got places like Fairlight and that outside, and it's a small town. You know, so it's great. I love it. I do.
I brought children up here and my wife, and I would consider it as a pretty safe area. Yeah.
In 1999, Charlene Lunnan had just moved from the bustle of London to start a new life with her father in St Leonard's, on the outskirts of Hastings. Charlene's mother had died, and after years in foster care, she was eager to meet some new school friends.
It was in year 4, and I think it was the first day, and I got shown around, and when you're a new girl, I don't know, no one really speaks to you that much. And then I remember saying, I need a sharpener. And then Lisa was like, I've got a Spice Girl sharpener you can borrow.
She didn't have many friends then, obviously. She just moved from London. And I offered her, I think it must have been a sharpener, I offered her my sharpener. And I just said that I'll play with her if she ain't got no one to play with and stuff in the playground. And I think I went round her house after school that day, and ever since then we've just been really good friends.
Charlene and Lisa became inseparable. They lived in roads next to each other, and by the time they were 10 years old, began to crave more independence.
As they got older, as kids do, they started asking to walk to school on their own. And I thought it was safe enough to do that, to be honest. I didn't see no reason why not. They didn't even have to cross a main road to get to school. I thought it was totally safe. I really did.
The day Charlene and Lisa disappeared started like any other. At home, they got ready for their 5-minute walk to school.
I left my house as normal. I remember saying goodbye to my mum and that lot, and I just walked out my house going up to meet Charlene.
Lisa came up and said, I'm going to Charlene's now, and she gave me a kiss goodbye and said to see you later, and that was the last I saw of her.
But I think we were running a little bit late that day, and we decided to take a shortcut down a one-way road, but it was quite open, still had loads of houses down there and everything, and still thought it was safe too.
Charlene and Lisa set off up the hill and along Cornfield Terrace. But someone else was also heading along that quiet road that morning. A lone man was driving around when he spotted the two little girls.
We were walking down the road and we were just laughing and joking, and I remember there was like loads of rubbish all on the floor, and all the bags had been ripped open, and there was like loads of like squashed food across the road, and Lisa was about to tread in it, so I pushed her and she slipped into the road, and as she slipped in the road there was a car driving up and it nearly hit Lisa.
And he had to stop suddenly because like he was close to hitting me, and he said sorry, and he put his arms around us and was just do exactly what I say. He put his arm around my mouth and picked me up and put me in his boot.
I just froze. I couldn't talk, I couldn't scream, I couldn't do nothing. But the whole time I was just looking at Lisa, and her face was like bright red and she was screaming, and he just chucked her in, and then, I know it sounds weird, but I sort of just got in myself. I just didn't want to leave her.
I was screaming. I was hoping that someone would actually come out of their house and say something, but no one did. No one was down that road.
Lisa and Charlene had been snatched by 46-year-old Alan Hopkinson. Hopkinson was a dangerous man who had a history of kidnapping young girls. No one had witnessed their abduction, and Hopkinson drove Lisa and Charlene out of Hastings.
Lisa was just crying. I just stroked her hair and I sang to her. It felt like we were driving for hours and hours.
After a few miles, Hopkinson pulled off the coast road and down a quiet lay-by.
I remember the car stopping, and he opened the boot, and it was like we were on like a massive field, but I could hear loads of cars, but I couldn't see them, but it was just like a massive field, and like, you know, like a stony path. It was just like that. And then he opened the boot, got me out, and left Lisa in the boot.
I couldn't hear nothing. I must have been really, really panicky. I must have been thinking, you know, why me, what is happening? But all I was thinking was, you know, I just want to go to school.
He put me in the back of the car and like sat me on his lap, and he was just asking me loads of questions, like what's my favourite colour, like what do I like to eat, what's my name, how old am I, what school do I go to, what's my mum like, what's my dad like. He looks really old and really like lanky. He just looked horrible. He was really calm the whole time, just really calm.
Hopkinson told the girls he wasn't going to hurt them, but would keep them until someone paid a ransom. He then put them back in the boot of his small car and drove 12 miles along the coast to Eastbourne, far enough away from where he'd snatched them.
It's no accident that he drove 12 miles, in my view. He had this very clearly planned out, and it was done deliberately to protect himself, to put clear blue water between where the children are abducted.
In Hastings, school had started, but no one had phoned to see why Charlene and Lisa were absent. As the two friends were driven away, their parents had no idea their daughters had been taken. They didn't even know they were missing. 10-year-olds Charlene Lunnan and Lisa Hoodless had been snatched on their walk to school in Hastings by 46-year-old Alan Hopkinson. Trapped inside the boot of Hopkinson's car, the girls were driven 12 miles along the coast to Eastbourne.
All we heard is, you know, when you get like an underground car park, you know, you can hear, I don't know, it's a different sound. And he opened the boot, got Lisa out. He must have took her up to his flat.
He tied me up with a pair of tights, and he stripped me down and started, you know, and he took my name and address down, I don't know why, and asked me like what my favourite food was and my favourite colour and weird questions like that. And then he left me there.
He put me in like a bin liner. He got me to like the stairs, and it was like ripping, and I said that I couldn't breathe, so he let me out, and I just walked up the stairs with him, and there was no one about, I couldn't see no one.
Hopkinson lived alone in a small flat above the Langley shopping centre. He was an intelligent man who spent years working at the Bank of England. But in 1991 he'd been imprisoned for kidnapping an 11-year-old girl. And since his release, had struggled to find work and accommodation.
It had loads and loads of stuff in, not junk, but he collected loads of stuff. And there was a single bed and then the sofa. And and it really smelled. And Lisa was sitting on the sofa, her face was all red and her hands were all purple, and so was her feet where he'd tied her up too tight.
I remember I couldn't feel my hands, and I was managed to look at my hands. Obviously they were behind my head, but I remember slightly looking at them and they were going purple, and they really did hurt. I remember that feeling though.
And then he took me into the bedroom.
Hopkinson now focused his attentions onto Charlene, and he tried to rape her.
I knew he was doing something wrong, obviously, because she was crying and everything, but I still didn't have a clue what he was doing to her until she had came out and told me. And then that's when it sort of hit me, that I knew what was going on.
Just a few miles along the coast in Hastings, Lisa and Charlene's parents were unaware of the horror their daughters were going through. As normal at 3:10, Lisa's mother began the school run with her friend Alison. They picked up their younger children and waited for Lisa and Charlene.
We waited 10 minutes and the kids were getting restless, so I decided to go upstairs and see where she was. And I went in and asked Mr. O'Cranix, which was the teacher at the time, and he said they hadn't been to school that day.
On the way back home, we had a chat, and I thought, she may have not turned up at school that day. Sort of probably wandering around town, probably trying to think what to say to Mum why she didn't turn up at school.
I waited by the window, I remember, and I waited and waited, and then it was getting to 5 o'clock by this time.
With the realisation that the girls had been missing now for over 8 hours, Charlene's stepmother Philomena called Charlene's father at work.
I got a phone call from Phil saying that Charlene hadn't turned up home. Lisa hadn't come home neither. And I said, have you phoned all their other friends? And she said she had. I said, well, you've got to get on, you've got to phone the police straight away, and I'm coming home now.
As Keith headed home, Hastings Police Station took the call.
Thousands of children go missing every day around the UK, and these 2 children would have been amongst others that had gone missing on that day in Sussex. So the police initially take that phone call and they have to immediately assess what the likelihood of this being a critical incident.
Because the girls were so young, Sussex Police responded immediately and sent officers over to the parents' homes.
First they checked Lisa's bedroom and that. And then they went away, and then they came back, and I think they searched the house. Panic started to set in then.
Me and my husband was out looking till early hours of the morning, still couldn't find her.
I got in the car and I drove around the block looking for her, and round and all over the place.
There was still no sign of Lisa and Charlene. Keith had to return home and let the police take over.
That was the worst part of the whole scenario. You couldn't actually do anything. It had to be left to other people, which made you feel rather useless, really.
By evening, Sussex Police took to the streets and began knocking on the doors of houses close to the school.
There was a knock on the door late at night. It was about 10:30, and the police came in and just wanted to search our gardens, and they were very intent. They, very serious. It was such a nightmare to know that those 2 girls were missing.
The police scoured the streets of Hastings into the early hours, unaware they were looking in the wrong place. Just 12 miles along the coast, in Eastbourne, Lisa and Charlene remained imprisoned.
Me and Lisa ate our packed lunch that we had for that day, and I don't know, he put us both on the sofa and gave us a blanket, and I kept kicking Lisa to tell her to stay awake.
And I remember she was like, "Please don't go to sleep, Lisa, don't go to sleep." But I was so tired, I couldn't keep myself awake. I tried to so hard, but I couldn't, I just drifted off.
He never slept, I never saw him sleep. He used to just walk around all night and like just come in every now and again and look at us and then walk back out again.
By Wednesday morning, Lisa and Charlene had been missing for 24 hours, and the chances of finding them alive were diminishing. So the police investigation stepped up a gear. Aided by daylight, 70 officers began a fingertip search throughout Hastings, and the media were given the story to spread the word, with the hope that someone might have seen something.
It was first thing Wednesday morning the police contacted us. I found out immediately from a police contact that these were girls who hadn't been missing before, they hadn't played truant before, they'd been out all night long, they were only 10 years old, the same age as my own daughter actually, and straight away I presumed something bad had happened.
It was vital to give the families support throughout the search and keep them informed of any new leads, so specialist family liaison officers were sent to their homes.
The mood was, I would say, panic, frightened, not knowing what's going on, hunger and thirst for information, what the police were doing, and that was my role. I needed to get in there and be the link between the senior investigation officer and them.
In my own mind, I was thinking something bad had happened, really bad. Paul told me not to dwell on that because you had to keep your hope alive. If you don't keep your hope alive and you start going into that, you go into deep depression and then you're no help to anybody.
You want to hope, I think, hope and pray that what had happened is they've gone on some sort of adventure, which, with two of them going, made you think that could have possibly be what's happened, you know.
Police in East Sussex are making door-to-door inquiries to try to find two 10-year-old girls who haven't been seen since yesterday morning.
By Wednesday lunchtime, the story of Lisa and Charlene's disappearance went national.
The search has been taken to every parent outside the school that question, did they see Lisa and Charlene after that vital time of 8:30 yesterday morning?
Within hours of the news reports, the police were bombarded with possible leads and sightings. Most placed the girls in Hastings, but school friends suggested Charlene and Lisa had talked of running away, and the search widened to London, where some of Charlene's family still lived.
Apparently there have been sightings of the girls in southeast London. They were seen on a bus, and there are two other sightings of them on a train in the Plumstead area of southeast London.
Few of us and my sister, we did search around. I mean, we searched around in the local areas where we were. Ruislip train station had pictures up of Charlene actually at the train station because they thought she'd come in from there. I hoped she was on her way up our end. I knew that they were only 10 and that it was highly unlikely that they were going to even know how to get on a train or where to get a train to or from. But you only hope, don't you?
As the police searched in vain, looking in all the wrong places, in Eastbourne, Lisa and Charlene awoke to their second day of imprisonment. Their kidnapper, Alan Hopkinson, had been released from prison in 1995 and given probation. But 4 years on, his probation had expired. He disappeared off the police radar and was at liberty to reoffend.
He played mind games all the time, and he used to say to us that he spoke to our mums and dads, and they said that they don't want to pay ransom, they don't want us back. And at 10, you just believe it.
He said if we tried to run away or scream or anything, the man next door would kill us, and that he was much nastier and horrible than he was. So that's why we kept quiet. And he said, don't try and escape out the window either, because it's such a big drop. If you try and jump, then you'll just fall to your death. So you're better off staying here.
Even though we'd be like, why are you doing it to us? Like, you're hurting us. He would like change it around and be like, well, at least I'm being gentle with you, not what other people would do. But that's what he was trying to make out, that we had to appreciate him.
He wanted, in some sense, to have some sort of successful sexual encounter with them. And success not just in the completion of the sexual act, though that is important, but in terms of wanting to have some form of a bizarre relationship with them.
I think he wanted us to trust him. And I think he wanted us to think he was a friend or something.
I just thought that he was going to kill us, and that was it. That's all I could think about, is how's he going to do it?
Back in Hastings, Lisa and Charlene's parents were about to get more actively involved in the hunt for their daughters. They were advised by police to make a personal appeal on the television news to increase publicity.
Tired and emotionally drained, the parents of the two girls said they could not think of any reason why their children would have run away.
Please come home, Charlene. If you're staying away because you're scared or whatever it is, there's nothing to be scared of. You're not going to get told off. No one's going to get angry with you. Just come home. Just come home.
It certainly thrust somebody into a limelight that didn't really want to be in the limelight. I always thought of the press as an evil that you had to put up with, basically. I mean, people told me to use them rather than to let them use you. That's what I tried to do.
But Keith's attempt to use the media wasn't going to be easy. A tabloid newspaper viciously turned the tables on him and threatened to expose his past, blackening his character.
So I decided to tell them everything about it, I mean, I used to be a drug addict, I used to be a thief, I used to be a robber, and I spent 20 years using heroin. That was my life, but I've also finished with all that, and at this moment I haven't used drugs in 18 years. I'm quite proud of my achievements, but I actually was sitting there thinking, they think I'm guilty of doing something here. I don't know what, but they think I'm guilty of something just by making these appeals. And so that added to my paranoia, basically.
Although Keith had felt the bite of a hungry press pack, he was never a serious suspect in the investigation. In Eastbourne, Hopkinson was about to take a huge risk. His parents were away on holiday, and he hid the girls in the boot of his car and drove across town to their empty house. Having failed to rape Charlene the first time, he was determined to try again.
I remember he took Charlene into the other room and I was left on my own in the front room, and I remember watching this horror film. But yeah, I think it was a video that his parents had, and he made me sit there and watch it.
I started crying because he really hurt me, and then Lisa come running. As she opened the door,
I could just tell by her face I knew what he did. I knew it, but she wasn't crying or anything like that.
I was actually completely numb. I felt dirty, and all my innocence and everything had been taken away, but I was just numb. That's the best way I can explain it. I didn't really have any feelings about any of it. I wasn't even scared or upset or anything. I was just numb.
As Charlene and Lisa suffered, rescue was all they hoped for, and it would soon come, but from an unexpected angle. By Thursday morning, 10-year-olds Lisa and Charlene had been missing for 2 days.
This is when the clock really starts ticking. You've got probably 24, 48 hours, of which time, if you haven't found the child in that period of time, the likelihood is that they're going to be killed.
Hastings was now swamped by 300 police officers, 20 specialist search units, and 50 Gurkha soldiers, as all available manpower was thrown at the hunt.
I think it would come unprecedented well, especially in Hastings, and you've got the military involved now, Gurkha soldiers searching for any sign or any trace of them.
Every national newspaper now headlined the story on its front page, and a dark mood descended upon the people of Hastings as they realised it was unlikely the best friends had simply run away.
Even though it seemed inconceivable that they had been snatched off the street, they had disappeared. And there was the feeling that maybe they were being held somewhere.
I can remember there was a kind of a awful hauntedness that went across everybody. A sadness mixed with like a horror.
The worry and the fear had a grip on the town.
It started off as a feeling or maybe a hope that they had run away. But as the time went by, it started to change, and abduction was on our minds.
I just wanted Charlene back, really, over with. And that's all, that's all that's going on. I suppose it's like waiting on death row in a way, for the final act to happen.
As the community began to lose all sense of hope that Charlene and Lisa would ever be found, an unconnected investigation within Sussex Police was about to unwittingly start closing the net on the girl's kidnapper. Along the coast in Eastbourne, a schoolgirl had complained she'd been sexually assaulted by a man over several months. The man's name was Alan Hopkinson, and the police were preparing to pay him a visit. In his flat in Eastbourne, Alan Hopkinson and Lisa and Charlene were completely unaware the police were getting closer. By now, Hopkinson's behaviour had changed. He was becoming even more erratic and disturbed.
I remember him saying that we were allowed to hit him. I don't know why, but I think Lisa hit him. She just hit him around the face.
Yeah, I think that day it was getting quite scary. It was scary to be around him and everything, and he was quite agitated about a lot of things. Yeah, he was very on edge.
We were just begging him to let us go, and we said that he should drop us off in the middle of the night, and we promised that we'd never tell no one, and we would never tell the police, or obviously me and Lisa planned to, but we were just trying our hardest. And then he was like, okay then, I'll take you home. And we couldn't stop smiling because we thought that was it, this was the end of this nightmare.
That was the first bath that we had. Me and Charlene shared a bath, and we got ourselves cleaned up, and we went back in our school uniform, and we had all our stuff with us.
Hopkinson threw Lisa and Charlene into the boot of his car and drove towards the coast road. But he didn't keep his word, and instead of taking them home, he headed to Beachy Head, the notorious suicide spot.
He was driving around for about an hour, and he said that he got lost and he doesn't know his way back to Hastings.
When I sat there and listened, it was just constant gravel everywhere, and I had a feeling it was just going around in circles. And then he pulled up, and he opened the boot, and I remember it being really, really cold.
We were I don't know, he was cuddling us, on the cliff edge, and then he just I can't remember if he grabbed Lisa, but I just remember that he had hold of my top and he pushed me. I was really close to the edge, and he was just looking in my eyes. I started screaming, and then he pulled me back, and he was like, "No, I want you for one more day. I haven't finished." And I was proper shook up. I couldn't stop shaking, and I was crying at that point. And that was it. Then he just went back to his flat.
It's unclear what Hopkinson's exact intentions were, but he decided to risk keeping the girls for longer. Lisa and Charlene had now been missing for 3 days, and the police investigation reached a major turning point. It now seemed certain the girls had been abducted, and the police asked Keith to make an appeal on the news to try and talk directly to whoever may have taken them.
I got to a place that was really dark, and I made an appeal saying that whoever's got her, would you release her? They asked me to word it differently from what I wanted to word it, but it was like, if anybody was misguidedly enough to be shouting her or holding her, would they release her? But to me, I was appealing to the guy to release her.
My theory is that she's at someone's house. She's got to be in somewhere that's safe and warm. That's all I can come to, and I'm just hoping and trying to stay positive that's a safe place for her to be.
If you're right, if they are in somebody's house and somebody's obviously looking after them, what do you say to that person?
I say to that person, please send them home.
In the flat in Eastbourne, Lisa and Charlene had been forced to watch the news by Hopkinson, and that night Charlene saw her father's desperate appeal.
My dad just looked like he'd given up all hope, and you could just see in his eyes that he thought that we were dead.
The detective leading the search for the missing Sussex schoolgirls, Lisa Hoodless and Charlene Lunnan, has said he's losing hope of ever finding them alive.
Everyone was just giving up hope, everyone was. So where they were giving up hope, me and Lisa just gave up hope. And that was it. We just thought we were never ever going to get found.
By the end of Thursday night, the police hunt had run out of steam. Sightings of Lisa and Charlene had dried up, and the head of the investigation made a telling decision and prepared to make a personal visit to the girls' families.
He decided then that that we would go down and visit the families, both families together, and basically tell them what we thought. What Sussex Police thought was that we were now fearing for their safety. Officially fearing for their safety. And that there would be a probability that we might not find them alive.
To me, that meant that they were going to, really turn the investigation totally around from what it was. A search no longer, basically a murder inquiry.
I was upstairs making the beds, and Andy came in and said they're going to, I think he said, going to scale the search down. And he was close to crying, he was close to tears, and I just sat on the bed. I did feel like crying, but nothing came out.
Minutes to 7. It is 3 days now since the two little girls from Hastings set off for school and never arrived. Our correspondent Stephen Cape is in Hastings. Any news at all, Stephen?
Not really. The police are growing more despondent as the hours pass.
It's a long time, isn't it? 3 days.
Too long, some would say. Too long.
On Friday morning, as the hunt for Charlene and Lisa began to scale down, the separate inquiry into Alan Hopkinson began to pick up speed, and a different team of officers were ready to pay him a surprise visit. In his flat, Hopkinson woke early. His attention was about to move on to Lisa.
I remember being asleep and he woke me up. He was sitting next to me, and he was waking me up, and I didn't want to wake up. I tried to pretend that I was asleep, but he wouldn't give up, and he you know, he asked me to go in the bedroom with him, and I really didn't want to, but I didn't want to fight. So I just went with him, and I was in there for like, it was a good 2 hours. I remember just laying there looking at the clock.
She was gone for hours, and I could hear her screaming, crying, everything. And it was hours.
I used to just close my eyes and just think of like things back home and think of like the happy things that I could remember and just pretend it weren't happening. I think it was a dream or a nightmare.
As the girls sat in the lounge comforting one another, thoughts of being found were far from their minds. When the silence was broken by a knock at the door.
And the whole time we'd been there, no one had ever knocked at the door. So we were like really shocked, and he was just looking at us, like telling us to be quiet.
At first, we were both really scared. We didn't know who it was. And then they were saying, it's the police, you've got to open the door. And we were really excited. But then all that was going through my head is, please don't walk away. I think they're going to walk away, because he wouldn't go and open the door.
He was like pacing back and forth, and he was just swearing. The whole time he was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
And then, luckily, he just went and opened the door.
Hopkinson was met by officers from Sussex Police. They'd come to arrest him for the allegations of sexual abuse made against him in the Eastbourne schoolgirl case. They had absolutely no idea that Lisa and Charlene were being held as prisoners.
They were questioning about a complete different case, and they didn't even have a clue that we were there. And he actually turned around and said to him, oh, the two missing girls in my front room. And I actually thought, before he said that they couldn't have come in and searched the place. So that's what I was thinking. They could have just taken him and walked away, and we were left there by ourselves. But yeah, he said that, oh, the two girls in the front room, and they had walked in, and the policeman was like, hey, we've been looking for you two. And they just picked us up, really, and carried us out. And the minute we stepped out that door, the sunlight, when it hit my face, it was so bright, and the fresh air was great. It really was.
I had a feeling that I was just dreaming it, like it wasn't true. So it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
After 3 days and 3 nights away from home, Charlene Lunnan reunited with her parents.
This morning, Keith Lunnan was beginning to fear the worst. Tonight, he and daughter Charlene posed for the pictures that said their family ordeal was over.
I was elated. I was really elated. I couldn't believe that it happened. You know, I mean, all the reports you get from, they don't come back. Kids don't come back when they've been abducted. It's as simple as that. So I was amazed. I was totally elated.
I just hugged her. And she sat on my knee, gave me a cuddle. It was a wonderful feeling. Running up the scoot.
I just felt, the world is beautiful. The world is fantastic, so, must be what heaven's like, really, eh?
Lisa Hoodless and Charlene Lunnan, perhaps Britain's best-known pair of best friends, at a photo call today after going missing for 3 days.
The 10-year-olds looked happy and relaxed and told reporters what it was like to be home.
Fantastic. I was cuddling on my mum and dad and having a little chat, and then I had a nice hot shower.
The two girls have now been given a week off, but did they miss school?
Yeah, and all my friends, and my boyfriend.
What's your boyfriend's name?
Stevie.
What did you miss the most?
My dad moaning at me.
When I cuddled her in a police station, no. so precious that, you know, I don't know what I would have done if she hadn't come back, but she did, so, you know, that's what matters.
Amidst the euphoria of finding the girls, Alan Hopkinson was arrested and detained at Eastbourne Police Station. Police immediately searched Hopkinson's flat and found a huge amount of evidence against him.
Stories about abduction and forceful sex with powerless young girls, maps containing schools which have been highlighted. So in other words, a sort of a dossier of information which one would expect to find in the home of the predatory paedophile.
I really hate him for what he's done. Not just to Lisa, to me, to the family.
I don't think my emotions would ever be anything but anger towards that man. I've often said I don't know what I would have done if he'd actually not been locked up straight away. If he was ever released, I don't know what I'd do.
On the 28th of May 1999, Alan Hopkinson was given 9 life sentences and imprisoned. As a direct result of Lisa and Charlene's abduction, new guidelines were introduced to ensure parents and schools communicated when children were absent. In Hastings, life slowly got back to normal. But there would be a dark twist for Lisa and Charlene. Recovering from their ordeal would push their friendship to breaking point. Ten-year-olds Lisa Hoodless and Charlene Lunnan had survived 4 days' imprisonment at the mercy of a predatory paedophile. Their friendship had been permanently scarred by their ordeal, and it slowly began to push them apart.
When I was younger, I couldn't bear to be around her. And it was like, I always had a little act on, like I was always really funny, confident. I got on with everyone, and then I'd look at Lisa and it made me feel what really has happened. Because I used to just try and forget it. So in the end, I just started to have hate for her. We both had to have counselling, and Lisa had it for like 4 months and she hated it, and her dad let her like stop, but my dad made me have it for about 1.5 years, and I hated it. I couldn't stand it, and because of that, when I was young, to me it seemed like Lisa had got over it and I hadn't, and why should she be happy and I'm not? And that's the way I looked at it, so I just started hating her.
All through secondary school as well, we weren't really that close. That's a good 4 or 5 years. We weren't close at all. She used to be, I don't know. I have to admit, she did bully me a little bit, but so did other people and everything, and we just didn't get on at all. And it wasn't until we were 16, when we left school and close friends died, that she realised that, I was actually a good friend that she needed and everything. And we hooked back together, and then I think that was the first time we probably spoke about it. We just sat up for ages and talked about everything that we felt.
It took 6 years and the death of a close mutual friend before Charlene could come to terms with her relationship with Lisa.
I just said to her that we need to be friends because we've been through so much together and we need to help each other. And then from that day on, we have been closer than anything. And I know we would never ever fall out again, ever.
It's been 9 years since Hastings was gripped by the disappearance of 2 little girls. The road to recovery for Charlene and Lisa is an ongoing process. They still live close by to one another in Hastings, and Lisa now has a son, Kyle.
When I look at Lisa now, it don't remind me of things that have happened. It just reminds me of what a brilliant mate that she is and that she's been there for everything. Yeah. She really has. I don't trust no one else apart from Lisa.
When I look at Charlene, I don't know. I look at the girl that I grew up at school with. I don't look at it as that girl.
There's no reason to be upset.
You know, you always hear about stories about it's mucking up people's lives, about bad things that have happened to them, but...
It's only if you let it.
Yeah, exactly. And even though we were young, I think we were still smart enough and old enough to know not to let it get to us.
We're definitely better people from
Definitely.
it. We're a lot stronger. It takes a lot to break me and Lisa now.
Doesn't it?
It makes us appreciate things as well.
Yeah, it makes us appreciate life, everything. Friendship.
These young girls could be described as being very lucky indeed in that they were found alive, but it would also be true to say they were extremely unlucky because they were there at the time, just when he was on the prowl, seeking out the opportunity. Right place, right time from his point of view meant wrong place, wrong time from theirs.
She's done really well for herself. I'm very proud of her. Yeah, she's done really well. She's got a smashing kid.
Charlene's my life. She's actually the one constant thing in my life, and in a strange, kind of perverse way, what happened to her has actually brought us closer together. And it's a kind of bond now that will never be broken, really. Love her to bits, basically. That's what matters.
Why did you want to make this film?
Probably to show people that there is a way out and that's not going down.
When someone goes missing, they can come back, and don't give up hope. Me and Lisa have come out on top, and he hasn't ruined our lives, and I want people to know that. And that's why we've done it, to get our side across.
If your life has been affected by child abuse, call our 24-hour recorded information line 08456 041 444. Lines are open around the clock.